The house at the edge of Willow Creek had once been full of laughter. Its white walls echoed with stories. Its windows glowed late into the night with the soft light of a man and his daughter sharing tea, old memories, and gentle silence. For Hannah Brooks, that house was more than wood and brick. It was her father's heart, his legacy, and the only place that had ever truly felt like home. For years, she had put her life on hold to care for him. Friends had moved on, her sisters had married, and time had marched on without her. Yet Hannah stayed. She cooked his meals, helped him with his medication, and read to him on cold winter nights. He would smile and tell her, "You're my strength, Hannah. You always have been." She'd smile back, hiding the ache in her heart, the one that reminded her she had turned down love, opportunity, and her own dreams for the man she loved most in the world. When he passed, the house felt like it exhaled for the first time, a long, empty breath that carried away the only sound that had made it feel alive. Hannah moved through its rooms like a shadow, brushing her fingers over the walls as if trying to hold on to what was left of him. His coffee cup still sat by the sink. His favorite cardigan was still draped over the arm of the couch. She couldn't bear to move them. Not yet. The funeral came and went in a blur of black coats and shallow condolences. Her sisters, Lydia and Marjorie, arrived from out of town, each with their polished smiles and city perfume. They didn't linger long by the graveside. They didn't stay for dinner afterward. Their words were short, almost rehearsed. Hannah knew then that grief had not touched them in the same way. They had cried enough to be seen crying, and that was all. 3 days later, they came again, not with flowers, not with food, but with papers and tension. The air in the living room was heavy. The old grandfather clock ticked between their silences. Lydia, the elder sister, stood near the fireplace, arms crossed. "We've gone over the will," she said in that clipped, businesslike tone she always used when she wanted control. "It's clear Dad wanted us to share the estate equally." Hannah looked up from the armchair where she'd been sitting, hands wrapped around a cold cup of tea. "He also said the house wasn't to be sold until I'm married," she reminded quietly. Marjorie scoffed, flipping her glossy hair. "That was before he knew you'd never get married, Hannah. Don't you think it's unfair that we should wait forever because of that?" The words hit like a slap. Hannah tried to hold her composure. "He trusted us to respect his wishes," she said. "He built this home. It was his heart." "Maybe," Lydia replied, "but it's also valuable property, and we have bills, children, and responsibilities. You're living here alone, rent-free, while we—" "While you what?" Hannah interrupted softly, her voice trembling. "While you live comfortably in the city? While you forget he even existed until it's time to divide what's left?" The silence that followed was sharp. Lydia's jaw tightened. Marjorie looked away, uncomfortable. Then Lydia placed a folded piece of paper on the coffee table. "You have 1 week," she said. "We're selling the house. Either move out, or we'll make it legal." They left without another word. The front door closed behind them with a hollow echo that lingered in the quiet room. Hannah sat still for a long time, staring at the paper. Her father's handwriting had always been neat, calm, full of care, but now all she saw were the cold, printed letters of the world he'd tried to protect her from. That night, she didn't sleep. She walked through the house barefoot, feeling every creak of the old floorboards, every whisper of the wind against the windows. She went into her father's room and sat on the edge of his bed, clutching the old rosary that still hung by his nightstand. "Daddy," she whispered, "I don't know what to do. They want to take the house." The silence was her only answer, but she could almost feel his presence. Calm, steady, the way he used to be when things went wrong. "Have faith, Hannah," she imagined him saying. "You've always done right by me. Life will do right by you too." But faith was hard to hold when everything else was falling apart. The next morning, she began packing, though every movement felt like betrayal. She wrapped dishes in old newspaper, folded blankets, and sorted through drawers that still smelled faintly of cedar. Each box seemed to carry a piece of her heart. By the 5th day, her room was bare except for the bed and a small framed photograph of her father smiling beside her. She kept the photograph with her everywhere she went. On the 7th night, the last night before she was to leave, she sat on the porch steps, staring out at the garden her father had once tended. The roses had grown wild, the grass too long, but under the moonlight, it was still beautiful. She thought about the 7 men she had turned down over the years, not out of pride, but out of duty. Each one had offered her a future, but none understood that her heart already belonged to her father's care. There had been one, though, Ethan Walker, who had made her pause. He was kind, gentle, with an easy smile that reached his eyes. But when he proposed, her father had fallen ill, and she couldn't bring herself to leave. He had understood, at least at first. But time and distance had changed things, or so she had thought. As she sat there, the sound of tires on gravel broke the quiet. A black car rolled to a stop by the gate. The door opened, and a tall figure stepped out. Hannah's breath caught. Even in the dim light, she knew that face. "Ethan?" she whispered, almost afraid to believe it. He smiled, the same soft smile that had once melted her resolve. "Hello, Hannah." She stood, clutching her sweater around her shoulders. "What are you doing here?" He walked toward her slowly, his steps measured. "I heard about your father," he said. "I wanted to come sooner, but I thought you might not want to see me." Her eyes softened. "You thought right," she said, though her voice lacked conviction. He chuckled lightly, glancing at the house. "Still the same porch? Same roses? I almost expected you to be sitting here." "I've been sitting here most nights," she admitted quietly. "It's hard to say goodbye." He looked at her for a long moment, then took a breath. "I came for another reason, too." Hannah tilted her head, wary. "What reason?" He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded document. "I bought the house." For a second, she thought she'd misheard. The words didn't make sense. "You... what?" "I bought it," he repeated gently. "From your sisters. They put it up for sale this morning. I signed the papers this afternoon." She stared at him, her mouth slightly open. "Why would you do that? Why now?" He stepped closer, his expression calm, sincere. "Because I finally understood why you turned me down all those years ago. It wasn't rejection, it was love. Love for your father, for this home, for what he built. I didn't see that then, but I do now." Hannah felt her throat tighten. "Ethan, I can't let you..." He raised a hand to stop her. "I didn't come to ask for anything. This house is yours now. Yours alone. If you want, we can start a new life here together. If not, then consider it my gift. For all you've given, and all you've lost." Tears filled her eyes before she could stop them. The words hung in the air between them, warm and real. She looked up at him, searching for something. Doubt, pride, pity, but there was none, only kindness. The wind rustled through the trees. The porch light flickered softly, and for the first time in months, Hannah felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. She turned toward the house, the home she had nearly lost, and then back to the man who had given it back to her. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "You don't have to," he said quietly. "Just don't say goodbye this time." The morning after Ethan's visit felt different. The light seemed softer, the air calmer, as if the house itself had taken a deep breath. Hannah woke early, though she hadn't slept much. Her dreams had been full of memories. Her father smiling at her from the garden, Ethan standing by the porch, the sound of laughter that once filled the halls. She made coffee the way her father used to like it, half a teaspoon too sweet, and sat by the kitchen window watching the mist roll across the yard. For the first time since the funeral, she didn't feel entirely alone. When Ethan had left the night before, he hadn't pressed her for an answer. He simply said, "Take your time," and walked away, leaving her standing on the porch with tears on her cheeks and a spark of something she hadn't felt in years: hope. Still, hope was a fragile thing. She didn't quite know how to feel about what he'd done. Buying the house was an act of incredible kindness, maybe even love, but it also unsettled her. The house was hers, yes, but not by her own means. It made her heart ache in a new way, somewhere between gratitude and guilt. By noon, she decided she needed to talk to him. She found his number tucked away in an old phone book, the one her father used to keep near the landline. Her hands trembled as she dialed. "Hello?" His voice was calm, familiar. "Ethan, it's me," she said softly. There was a pause, then a smile she could hear through the phone. "I was hoping you'd call. Can we meet?" "Of course. Same place as always?" "The lake?" "The lake," he confirmed. The lake had always been their spot, a quiet place on the outskirts of town where the water reflected the sky and time seemed to slow down. Hannah arrived first, the crisp autumn air biting at her cheeks. The trees had started to turn, their gold and amber leaves falling gently onto the water's surface. When Ethan arrived, he was carrying a small basket. "I thought you might not have eaten," he said, setting it down beside her. "Old habits die hard." She smiled faintly. "You still remember that?" "I remember everything," he said. They sat together in silence for a while, watching the water ripple. It felt like no time had passed at all, though years had gone by since they'd last shared a moment like this. Finally, Hannah spoke. "You didn't have to buy the house, Ethan. I don't deserve that." He turned to her. "You don't think you deserve kindness?" "I think..." She hesitated. "I think I've spent so long taking care of everyone else that I don't know how to let someone take care of me." He nodded slowly, as if he understood more than she said. "That's exactly why I did it. You've given everything to others, Hannah. It's time someone gave something back." His words hung in the air, simple and honest. "I don't know if I can start over," she admitted. "Everything reminds me of him. The garden, the chair by the window, even the smell of the wood floors." Ethan's gaze softened. "Then don't start over," he said. "Start from here. Keep the memories, keep what's sacred. Just make space for something new, too." She looked at him, her eyes wet. "You make it sound easy." "It's not," he said, "but it's worth trying." They talked for hours, about her father, about the years they'd missed, about what might come next. The world around them seemed to fade, leaving only two people rediscovering something fragile but real. When she finally stood to leave, he walked her to her car and said, "Whatever happens, Hannah, you're not alone anymore." And she believed him. The weeks that followed were quiet but full of change. Hannah began to tend the garden again, pulling weeds, pruning roses, planting new flowers in the soil her father once cared for. Each day she felt a little lighter, a little stronger. Ethan came by often, helping her fix the old fence, repaint the porch, and repair the roof that had started to sag. They laughed more than she expected. Sometimes, when the work was done, they'd sit on the porch steps drinking lemonade and watching the sun go down behind the trees. One evening, as the sky turned orange and pink, Ethan said, "You know, this house suits you. It's quiet but full of heart." Hannah smiled. "That's what my father used to say about me." He was right. She turned to look at him, the fading light catching in his eyes. "You really never changed, did you?" "Oh, I changed," he said with a grin, "just enough to know what matters." There was a pause, a gentle, lingering moment that neither broke. For the first time, Hannah didn't look away. As the months passed, the house slowly came back to life. The smell of fresh paint replaced the musty scent of dust. Curtains fluttered again in the open windows. Birds returned to the garden, nesting in the old oak tree. Neighbors began to stop by, curious and warm. They'd say things like, "It's good to see someone living here again," or, "Your father would be proud." Each time Hannah smiled and said thank you, but in her heart, she was still learning how to believe that. Then one evening, as she was sweeping the porch, Ethan pulled up in his truck. He got out, carrying something behind his back. "What's that?" she asked. He grinned. "Something your dad would have liked." He revealed a small wooden sign, hand-carved, with the words, "Brooks Home, Forever in Bloom." Hannah's throat tightened. She reached out to touch the carved letters, her eyes shimmering. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "I thought it might belong here," he said. "By the gate. A reminder that love doesn't end. It just changes shape." She nodded, tears falling freely now. "Thank you, Ethan." "Don't thank me," he said softly. "You're the one who kept it alive." He helped her hang the sign by the garden gate. When they stepped back, the setting sun caught the polished wood, and it seemed to glow. Winter came, cold and sharp, but the house stayed warm. Hannah had decorated it for Christmas, something she hadn't done since her father passed. There were garlands along the staircase, a tree in the corner, and candles flickering in the windows. Ethan joined her for dinner on Christmas Eve. The meal was simple: roast chicken, mashed potatoes, and pie. But it felt like a feast. After dinner, they sat by the fire. The only sound was the crackle of wood and the soft hum of a carol on the radio. Hannah glanced at him, her heart full. "Do you ever regret coming back?" she asked. He shook his head. "Not for a second. You?" She smiled. "No, I just wish my father could see all this." Ethan looked around the room. "I think he can." She turned toward the mantel where her father's photograph stood, the light from the fire dancing across his smiling face. "I hope so," she whispered. After a long silence, Ethan reached for her hand. "Hannah," he said, his voice low, steady. "I know you've lost a lot, but if there's room in your heart, maybe we can build something together, something that honors him and us." She didn't answer right away. Tears slipped down her cheeks, but this time they weren't from grief. Finally, she nodded. "Yes," she said. "I'd like that." He smiled, pulling her close as the snow began to fall outside. Spring arrived with gentle rain and blooming flowers. The house that had once been quiet and lonely now buzzed with warmth and laughter. Hannah and Ethan worked side by side to restore every corner, repainting walls, mending fences, planting new seeds in the garden. One sunny afternoon, as they stood by the porch, Ethan handed her a small box. "What's this?" she asked, smiling. "Open it." Inside was a simple gold ring. No diamonds, no embellishments, just a band of gold, warm and timeless. He looked at her, nervous but sure. "I know we've both waited long enough. So, Hannah Brooks, will you marry me? Right here, in the home you fought so hard to keep?" Her breath caught. The world seemed to still around her. She thought of her father, of the house, of the long road that had brought her here, and then she smiled, a full, radiant smile that came from deep within. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I will." He slipped the ring onto her finger, and for the first time in years, Hannah felt whole. Their wedding was small, held in the garden beneath the old oak tree, the same tree where her father used to sit with his morning coffee. The sign by the gate, "Forever in Bloom," swayed gently in the breeze as they exchanged vows. As Hannah looked into Ethan's eyes, she felt the presence of her father all around her, in the wind, the sunlight, the scent of roses. When the ceremony ended, Ethan leaned close and whispered, "Welcome home." And she knew then that she had never truly left. The house that had once been a place of sorrow had become a home again. not because of walls or inheritance, but because love had found its way back. In that quiet little house by Willow Creek, Hannah learned that sometimes what's meant for you never really leaves. It just waits, patiently, until your heart is ready to open the door again. 3 years had passed since that spring morning when Hannah and Ethan stood beneath the old oak tree and promised forever. Time, in its quiet way, had softened the sharp edges of grief and replaced them with peace. The house by Willow Creek was alive again. Children's laughter now filled the garden. Their 2-year-old son, Luke, running through the grass while clutching a toy airplane, and their baby daughter, Ella, watching from the porch swing in her mother's arms. Ethan had built that swing himself, using the same wood from an old barn they'd torn down the year before. It creaked gently when the breeze blew, the sound blending with the rustle of leaves. Hannah loved sitting there in the evenings, rocking back and forth, watching the sun sink behind the hills. The wooden sign by the gate still read, "Brooks Home, forever in bloom." The letters had faded slightly from the weather, but Hannah liked it that way. It made it feel lived in, like everything else around her. Inside the house, life was simple and full. The kitchen smelled of cinnamon and fresh bread most mornings. The walls, once bare, were now lined with photographs. Her father in his garden, Ethan holding newborn Luke, family gatherings under the oak tree. Every picture told a story, a thread of the life they'd built from love, loss, and quiet persistence. Sometimes, late at night, when the world had gone still and the children were asleep, Hannah would light a candle and sit by the old wooden chair that still stood by the window, her father's chair. She'd sip tea and talk to him softly, just as she used to. "I think you'd like him, Daddy," she would whisper. "He takes care of the house like you did. He fixed the roof, planted new roses, even built Luke a little birdhouse. You'd be proud." And though there was no reply, she always felt something. A warmth in the air, a quiet reassurance that he was still there, watching. One summer afternoon, Ethan came in from the garden, his hands dirty from soil. "You should see the roses," he said, smiling. "They're blooming like never before." Hannah followed him outside. The garden was a sea of color, red, yellow, white, and pink roses, their petals open wide to the sunlight. Luke was chasing butterflies, laughing, while Ella clapped from her blanket on the grass. Ethan put an arm around her shoulders. "You did this," he said. She smiled. "We did this." He nodded, leaning his head against hers. "Funny thing," he murmured. "When I bought this place, I thought I was saving you. But really, this house saved me too." Hannah looked up at him, her eyes soft. "It saved both of us," she said. As the sun dipped lower, golden light poured across the garden, catching on the sign by the gate, "Forever in bloom." The words glowed for just a moment, almost like a blessing. Hannah thought about her father, about all the sacrifices, the long nights, the love that had anchored her even in loss. She realized then that his lessons had never left her. He had taught her that love isn't about holding on. It's about giving, forgiving, and letting life bloom again when the time is right. Luke ran up to her, holding a flower he'd picked. "For you, Mommy," he said proudly. She knelt and kissed his forehead. "Thank you, sweetheart. Grandpa would have loved these roses." "Where's Grandpa?" the boy asked innocently. Hannah smiled, glancing at the sky. "He's right here," she said softly, placing her hand over her heart. "He's part of everything that grows." Ethan reached for her hand, their fingers intertwining as they watched the sunset together. The colors bled into the horizon, fiery orange fading to soft pink and lavender. And in that moment, surrounded by laughter, love, and the gentle hum of life, Hannah knew her father's wish had been fulfilled. The house had not just stayed in the family, it had become a sanctuary, a place where love continued to grow long after goodbyes, a home truly forever in bloom. Drop a heart and comment, like and subscribe my channel, and visit my channel for more interesting stories.